Hi guys, my name is Taylor Ray and today we are talking about my year in review real estate edition. I'm doing this one a little later because I actually haven't even passed my 1 year quite yet. So it's January 2nd and my 1 year is January 18th, and that is the day that I joined Compass. That would have been almost 1 year ago now. So yeah, that is why I'm doing this after the new year. I just wanted to take the space to reflect on my real estate journey so far. Just to give you guys a little background, before I was working in sales, I actually started in property management. I was a leasing agent and I actually did a little video all about my time being a leasing agent, so check it out. It's actually one video I'm very proud of. And then I went on to a real estate firm called Windermere and I was a project marketing manager, and then when the director of marketing left, I took his role. So that's what I was doing while I was in school for my license. And then as soon as I was done and I passed the state exam, I looked for an opportunity to get into sales and actually use my license. And that's how I found this team at Compass, and I joined them as a showing partner. So we'll talk more about all of the things, but I just wanted to give a little backstory as to my history in real estate so far. Let's get into it. We're going to go over all the highlights of my past year in real estate sales. Okay, so I kind of just broke this down month by month just to like organize my thoughts. So obviously, as I've said, starting in January of last year, I officially got licensed and I joined a team at Compass as their designated showing partner. So that all happened in January, and then in February I officially left my director role at Windermere. I wanted to give them a ton of notice, so I actually ended up doing my showing partner job and my director job together from January until like the middle of February. So it was definitely like a lot mentally and emotionally just because I was working 2 full-time jobs. But my showing partner job, they were very understanding of me wanting to give them notice. I felt like it was a really big role to fill, like a director role. And the funny part of all of this is they never even filled it. I think they made the coordinators under me. They like gave them director roles but didn't change their title. It was really weird. So I don't know. I probably gave them so much notice for nothing, but what can you do? Here we are. So yeah, that was my January and February. It was really just like transitioning. I had taken my state exam in December and it took a little bit for my fingerprints to clear. As soon as I knew I passed, that's when I started reaching out to people. And at that point in my life, I felt like I really needed to work for somebody. It definitely wasn't my ideal scenario. It wasn't like something I was dying to do. Like, I knew I didn't want to be an assistant, so I needed to try to find a different way to have this opportunity to learn from somebody. One of my big whys getting into real estate and a huge turning point in my life was that I was very much over being an employee. So I knew going into like having my license that I was going to need to be an employee, but I needed to find like a creative way to do it so that I didn't go crazy. And that was like sort of like the next best thing, as I kept seeing these showing partner roles on Indeed. That's where I was like primarily looking, and I was like, okay, interesting. Very similar to what I was doing as a leasing agent. I would have stuck it out in property management, by the way, but the money just like wasn't there. I think when you get into like a new build and you have like a lease up, the money can be like very, very good, but for me it just like wasn't. So that was the other thing, is I was like, how do I also like work for somebody and it makes sense financially? So that was like, yeah, that was like my December, January, and February really, was figuring out what to do next, figuring out the best to learn and not go broke. And then, you know, Compass was like my dream to join at that point, and I knew that I wasn't going to be able to do it if I didn't join a team. So I was also being like pretty picky. I remember being like so over the moon about it, because if you aren't aware, like you can't really join Compass if you don't have a sales portfolio. So I just knew like that's the only way I'm going to get in here. And especially like after working at Windermere, I knew that like Windermere wasn't really my vibe, which is okay. You know what I mean? Like there's no shade to Windermere was just like, for me, like branding and marketing, because that's like my whole background. I've spent like going on 11 years in marketing, so I really care about that stuff. And also being in Seattle, like we didn't have a lot of options, you know, like there's a very small Corcoran office in Bothell. I think the agency had just opened up, but they were on the east side. So really Compass felt like the gold for me. And that's how I spent my winter months, just transitioning into being a real estate agent. I just remember being not only over the moon about being with Compass, but just so excited that I got to do real estate full time. And I felt like when I was in my marketing role that would also be really exciting, but it wasn't exciting working for other people and like building their brand. All I wanted to do was like build my own. So I definitely still experienced that as a showing partner. Like when you are on a team, and you know, all teams are built different, you'll hear that if you are in real estate and you're watching this. So, you know, the team that I was on, it really was all about like team branding and doing everything under the team name. So I do feel that I still struggled a little bit with that, but I was learning so much, and like I was boots on the ground, which I wasn't getting in the marketing department. Obviously it was an admin role, so it's just a very different side of real estate. And I'm so happy that I've had diverse experience, like working on the marketing side in real estate. I worked with 80 plus agents. The person who owned my office owned 6 total. So I got so much experience like working on the branding and marketing side of real estate teams and solo agents. And I think that was very valuable experience. And even working in property management was valuable experience. So I'm very proud of my background, and I knew that this role wasn't going to be like my end all be all. It wasn't going to be my forever, but I knew that it was going to give me the experience that I needed, because I did not have any field experience at that point. So very exciting. So shortly after I got licensed is when my mom got really serious about selling her house. It's something that she had talked about for a long time. She knew that she wasn't super happy in Washington anymore, like mostly because of the weather. So in March is like when we started like prepping everything. I have also posted like a handful of videos about listing my mom's house, so feel free to check those out. I have like a new real estate playlist now to make it easier to sift through. So that was a big highlight of my March, was realizing that I'm gonna sell my mom's house, which was really exciting. And then yeah, things just continued to grow. In April I did my very first open house, and the open house story is kind of funny just because I do have an event marketing background as well as digital marketing, but the event roots in me are alive and well, and I'm just kind of like a hostess at heart, and I love events, you know? So I very much treated the early days of my open houses like an event, and I had this like giant speaker that I bought when I threw a housewarming party when I first moved to Seattle, and I literally like took that speaker to all my open houses. And it's funny now because it was heavy and huge and unnecessary. I later opted for like a Bose speaker about that big with like a little handle, and that proved to be more productive. But that's like truly how I felt. I would show up with like ice waters, like an ice bucket, and put waters in them, snacks. I had the music going. I was really trying to create like a vibe, and it's something that I will still continue to do throughout my career, but not to that extent. I quickly learned most people don't take snacks. Honestly, most people didn't take the water either. Most places that I would do my open houses didn't even have ice. So there was a lot of trial and error, and I think there still is, especially now that I'm no longer working in Seattle. I'm not like embarrassed by it, but I'm just like, wow, I was really just doing the most. And the last sort of highlight that happened in the spring, this was in May, is when I actually started thinking about moving to New York again. I think that the conversations with my mom just probably got more serious, and Seattle's not really gonna feel like home if my mom isn't here, which I think is just like a very honest and okay thing, you know? Like I accepted that I didn't fall in love with Seattle the way that I had hoped. I was like very open-minded to like loving it, and my first year I loved it, and I really did see myself like building a business there and getting into these like niche areas of the industry. And when I knew my mom was leaving and I was so happy for her, I started to like reflect on my own situation. And if you've been here a while, then you know New York was always on my radar. So May actually is when I started to get, I wouldn't say serious yet, but when I started to like really start thinking about how do I do this? Would I move there and do real estate? You know, it was sort of just like planning the logistics in my head, but not seriously, just more so like, would it even be possible? Like, how crazy is this really? So by the summertime, which is like my favorite time in Seattle, my team was ranked number 19 on the Real Trends list, which was very exciting. I ended up writing my first offer.
We are excited to put our client's offer. We're excited to put in our client's offer.
Filming this moment because today is June 28th, 2022, and I have finally written my first offer. I, up until that point, had been working with the 2 team leads clients, and then I would foster my own clients through Zillow because we were on the Zillow Flex team, which like only a certain number of teams are allowed to do, so you have to like stay relevant, if you will. Basically, you have to be closing deals in order to stay on the program. It did take a while, but it was very exciting. I was mentored through the process, which I'm still so grateful for to this day, and my offer was accepted.
I just got my first offer accepted and had to document it. We submitted the offer this morning, and I brought my clients here because he really wanted his parents to see it. This is pending inspection. Oh, how the tables have turned in this market. We won it by $5,000, which is crazy. It feels like the skin of our teeth, which is why I say that. Yeah, my thoughts are all over the place, but this is really exciting.
And I was totally on cloud 9. Unfortunately, that same buyer did back out 3 days later. He kept the inspection contingency in, and that's why he was able to back out. I think it was a combination of cold feet, but also when he was given his number to shop around with, he like insisted on going through his credit union, which like personally, I would recommend anyone to go through like a local lender. He was very set on that, and they gave him a different number. And when it came down to like, this is what your number will look like to actually close on this, and this is what your mortgage will look like, he had to back out because the number was too high. So I really don't know like what happened with all that. Honestly, like there was obviously miscommunications along the way, like with his lender and himself. So anyways, I'm glad he was able to back out though. I would never ever want anyone to feel like they're stuck in something that big and serious. So I was bummed, but I was ultimately like happy that he was able to get out. I do remember distinctly like feeling when I found out that the offer was accepted that maybe New York was just like a silly idea, and that even if my mom did leave, that I could still be happy here. Like Washington is so beautiful, and you know, there was a lot of conflicting thoughts leading up to my final decision.